I blinked 4 times and 4 years done passed by. It only felt like 4 damn minutes done passed by. I done seen how quick life can pass by. You done live, you done love, then cried like mad times. Like oh my, then had a whole crowd say oh my.
So where I'm at right now in life, in terms of this chapter in my life, I would say I am in a time of transition and learning the hard truths of life, I would say.
Okay, yeah. What is that transition, and what are some of those hard truths? If you don't mind, opening up a little bit,
We're just gonna jump in like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I want to say transitions just because I think the last time we met, I was, sort of like going through some projects with my private practice, and then just trying to expand on that, work closer with the Lawrence community, talking about mental health and barriers that we people of color face. And so in terms of professionally, I think that my next chapter, education, we talked about that.
Yeah.
So since we last met, I'm actually going to be teaching now
Yeah.
at Merrimack College.
Okay.
So
okay.
that's huge. That's a transition from me doing the one-on-one sort of private practice and working on mental health to now actually teaching and educating others about psychology and systemic barriers. So that's a huge transition from just being a silo to now affecting change at like a macro level.
No, absolutely. Damn. And I had a question. This is part of your PhD program, or this is
No, this
separate?
is separate.
So you're pursuing this purely out of passion?
Purely out of passion. When we talked about the former event that you did, I talked about how education was such a big part in all of its forms, right? Not just formal education, but just education that you would learn from your peers, education of what you learned from your pops, right? Things that were passed down for you. So I have the formal training, which is, as you know, I'm enrolled in the PhD for psychology, specifically neuroscience. I'm also teaching at Merrimack College. I do that. I do the private practice.
Yeah.
And I'm also now a clinic director for a nonprofit right across the street. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I do a lot.
So wait, damn, is the nonprofit thing also kind of new?
It is. I just hit my 4th week last week.
It's your 4th week last week. So okay, these are two separate thoughts right now. Okay. Do you want to talk about the teaching first, or do you want to talk about the nonprofit first?
I want to talk about the teaching because I'm so excited about the teaching. I think that I look at my bag because I had such a surreal moment talking about transitions when I got the syllabus and it said professor. And I was like, my name, and I'm like, not her on the syllabus. And if you obviously you went to college, you did the schooling thing and all of that. You don't think about much when you get the syllabus, because I've gotten many syllabus. I did a bachelor's, a master's, now in my doctorate program. But to see my name in the title of professor, that's like the last part of my transition of how do I bring this again? How do I move from doing this work as a silo, sort of one-on-one, to yes, teaching the class material, but also teaching about psychology and how it interconnects with real life in Lawrence, right? In Andover. But I'm from Lawrence, and so I think that was huge for me.
So I'm extrapolating a little bit from what you said. You want to teach like real life application of psychology.
Yes.
All right. So it's not just a matter of like training future psychologists, but actually imparting onto people, I guess, the role of psychology in their daily life.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I love that, because my biggest gripe with academia has always been the sort of gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And the sort of non-application of certain subjects. And even you go into something as concrete as finance, it's mostly just, you learn finance, like basic finance, but the rest of the degree is training for the finance industry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What are you going to teach?
Human development across the lifespan.
Human development. So infant, toddler,
Till we die.
Till we die. Is that a particular subject of interest, or is that kind of just what you got? You know?
I got a choice of two, and I think that one specifically has a really big connection to real life implications. The other one was very set in stone. It was a theory class. I don't quite remember, but I think that human development across the lifespan was what I chose because, again, talking about real life implications, it is very different depending on who you are in terms of gender, socioeconomic standing, identity, access. It's very different based upon those, attributes of how you deal with mental health, of how you address feeling anxious, feeling depressed, or having anything that's affecting your functioning, right? So it's a privilege to even say, you know what, I'm taking a mental health day. Not everybody can take a mental health day. So what the book says, go to yoga, take a walk in the park. Well, what if there are no parks where you live? What if you have a job that doesn't offer benefits? And so we talk about and we teach these classes about mental health and how to address these barriers or how to use coping skills. But we forget that there is privilege even in suffering. So we don't even all suffer the same in terms of mental health because of where we are, who we are in life.
Yeah. God damn. That's heavy. What do you something I think about as a teacher? I teach creative writing. I teach high schoolers. And I've been thinking about this a lot more recently as I finished my first year, is that I want to be the teacher I needed. You know what I mean? Who is the teacher you needed? And like, what kind of teacher do you maybe expect yourself to be in a formal classroom? What are your expectations, or like what do you
That's a good one.
anticipations? Any like nervousness?
Oh,
or,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What's going through your mind like before you enter that classroom for the first time?
Oh, imposter syndrome, huge.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon, as we call it. Sort of like feelings of, do I belong here? Like, who am I? Again,
Yeah.
brown girl from Lawrence, up in Andover or North Andover, wherever my college is, teaching. And they were very honest with me to the point where they sort of told me, we just want to know, we're working on making the program more diverse, was the first thing they told me, which translates to, you're probably going to be the only brown woman in the room, and so it's wild to me how I find myself in this space. So when going back to your question, in terms of what is going through my mind, wow, like, is this really me here teaching this class? Am I really a professor? Do I deserve to be here? Am I good enough to be there? All right. But that is all tied back to, I was never led to believe in certain areas of my life that I would get to where I am today. And not specifically by teachers, right? But just people that you encounter, even family members. So that piece of your question, definitely nervous, anxious, imposter syndrome. And then in terms of what type of teacher I think I needed and the one I would like to be, I want to be 50% knowledge because I know my field. I don't call it arrogance. I'm very confident in my knowledge of psychology and neurodiversity and all of that, but I'm also a human being. And so what I hope to teach is that when I meet with a student or they leave the course that I'm teaching, is that they have a very clear understanding of the subject matter, but how it directly impacts them depending on who they are, not depending on what they see in the book. Because the book is good and we get all the theories and it looks beautiful and they write it beautiful, but what about real life? So I think, again, real life with textbook knowledge is, for me, would be the perfect blend. And that would be what I would have wanted to got what I would like to receive when I was in school.
Damn, okay. I want to hear from a therapist firsthand. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? Like, how do you actually confront that experience?
I still deal with it, man. I dealt with it this morning when they sent me the syllabus.
Yeah.
I still deal with it. How do I deal with it? I just remind myself that, and this is something that I would tell a client too, like, this is not a mistake. There were hundreds of applicants. It took 7, 8. I applied for this August last year.
Yeah.
This is how
it's a year.
When they called me for this interview, I forgot.
Yeah.
And this is just their process. They have a very rigorous process of selecting people they interview, forget hiring, right? And so I asked myself, and I would tell a client, or I will tell someone like yourself, whenever you find yourself or in a situation in life when you're having these imposter syndromes, to check the facts. What are the facts? This is not a lie. I do have the credentials that my resume says. I do have the knowledge that my resume says. I did go to all of these classes. I did obtain all of this education. I do have the knowledge. And so just because I feel unsafe in these spaces doesn't mean that I'm actually unsafe. It's just a feeling. Yeah. And the feeling has nothing to do with the tangible facts. So for me is I try to go back to the facts. How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
I feel like I don't get imposter syndrome.
You're just confident like that?
No, I have other problems. I have other problems. Because I don't think I've ever felt like, if anything, I've always been a bit arrogant and overconfident.
That's good.
It's undone me sometimes, right? Where it's like, this is the problem with overconfident people, or people who think they're smarter, is that they think just because they're smarter or confident that it's gonna work out, right? My biggest thing, and I'm working on this right now with my therapist, is essentially like discipline, consistency, and I think mostly those two things, right? Because a lot of those things tie into like my inability to commit at times, and I'm not just talking relationships. Oh, that's been a thing, right? But even like, and this is what I was even referencing last year. I started this podcast last year, but clearly we restarted the podcast, and there's a reason for that, right? Because I went in hella bullish, thinking I'm like, I got this, da 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 da. I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that.
I'm good like that. I got this.
No, I wasn't, bro. Crashed. We were kind of getting somewhere, but it's like, yo, and that's a pattern that's replayed throughout my whole life.
You see a theme, a recurring theme, just the same thing, but different settings, right? Like
Exactly.
you said, projects, personal passions, relationships, right?
Yeah.
It just comes back again.
It comes back again, yo. And this year, I've determined to commit, right? And I've been good about it. That's something I've been consistent in. Other parts of my life, you mentioned we got to work on coping skills. I need to, my therapist is, when we talk about discipline, that's what we talking about, coping skills.
Right,
what I mean, to a certain extent with me, right? So like, but that's why, even though we had some hiccups in April with the event, like we're keeping the ball rolling, because it's like, I wanted to quit, bro.
Yeah.
And that shit happened, I was like, oh my God.
Because you put in so much work, and it was such a dope event. Like it was just so many good connections. To this day, I still have connections with people I met there, and everybody was just like, wow, this was amazing. It was such a great event.
No, yeah. I'm happy we added value to people's lives. And that is something that like I had to keep telling myself, like, yo, we still did something good.
You did. You absolutely did. For me, and I want to say definitely, and I think I've talked to different people about this, it was huge for me. I think that this was such, because I tend to stay more in the shadows, and talking about education, how are you going to educate if you're always hiding? And I work very isolated, and it's just, I'm doing my therapy thing, so I don't get to go out in the community a lot. I don't have coworkers, I don't have peers that I can relate to. But that event, and the way that it was so intimate, and you were so purposeful in the way you set it up, for me it was so impactful. I don't think you realized how impactful that night was for me. And I will always remember that night. Talk about imposter syndrome. I was like, why am I speaking at this event? Like, who am I to be speaking? And you giving me the opportunity, and just being so genuine in your intentions and what you wanted to accomplish that night, propelled me to be like, this is another way that I can educate. This is another way that I can connect. Like, I do have something to say. And so that would always be a special place in my heart of remember that first event that I ever did.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you. That was great.
No, absolutely, man, yo. Sheesh.
Yes, your event will forever be in my heart.
No, I appreciate that. That means that does mean a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like we had a session, a 2-week session with some students, hella quiet. You have no idea if you're getting through to them the whole time, or if anything's coming out of it.
Yeah.
And then it's like at the end of it, you get the feedback, and you're like, all right, okay, something happened. You were listening. We added value, right? I guess speaking on education, because I guess you don't always often get to have a therapist in front of the camera. Maybe this is too broad of a question. What's wrong with my generation?
Oh, I have ideas. With your generation, because you're definitely
specifically
younger.
Gen Z, right?
I mean, yeah.
They say we're one of the most mentally.
Yeah, I can see that.
Good looks. She's talking about us, B.
I think that there's a certain respectfully.
Go no. That's what we're here for.
I think there's a certain level of unearned privilege with this generation. I think that yes, we all have talents. Yes, we are special, but I think that because of the commodity and just the emotional and psychological safety of your generation, I think it creates a certain level of entitledness. And I'm not talking about class. I'm talking about your expectation of the space you occupy in life. I think that this generation almost thinks that something is owed to them. Like you are like the Messiah. Yeah, like you are different. And again, we're all special, and why we're another. But I think that, and it's just the access to everything that we have in today's world, right?
Yes.
There are careers that Gen Zs are doing right now that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yeah. Exhibit A.
I'm in school for how many years now? Like what, 6, 8 to become a psychotherapist. Now another 4 to become a doctor. So that's like hella years. That's 12 years, right? And I have all of this education. Right now, there is a 22-year-old somewhere on YouTube making money that I will never see. Mm-hmm. And I have all of this education. So I do it out of passion, which is great. And I'm happy for the 22-year-old who's making millions that I would never see. It doesn't matter how many PhDs I get. And I'm cool with that. But I think I told you once, I think that having so much access to just things being easy and accessible, which has to do a lot with like the technological world that we're in, people that are self-thoughts, entrepreneurs like yourself starting their own project. People are more and more leaning away from academia. People are just, rejecting, which is a good thing about your generation. People are rejecting the traditional, home, college, buy a car, white picket fence, marriage. I see more and more people staying away from that, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. The issue that I see based on my practice is that although I think that's great to have that motivation to think outside the box, to not align with social standards, it robs you from specific struggles and lessons that you need to learn in life. It robs you from the ability to develop, tolerance resistance. So when you go from high school to I'm gonna be a YouTube sensation, which there is the case.
No,
many cases, right?
It happens a lot.
Right. So you end up missing out, sort of jumping very pivotal moments of your life and experiences.
Kind of like being a child actor.
Right.
You get your whole childhood robbed by fame.
And how do child actors end up, Daniel?
Fucked up.
Right. And so because, again, the discomfort, the ability to sit with discomfort, the ability to self-soothe as an adult, the ability to actually self-regulate, you don't gain that. You lose it. Because once you have all that money or stability, or you can just do your own thing, what else is there to learn in life?
The thing is that I have none of those things, and yet I still suffer from the affliction which you described.
Yeah.
Which could you backtrack a little bit before you said the money and the other thing? What was that part before that? Because that was really like, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Emotional type.
The emotional entitlement.
Yeah, the emotional, because I think I said earlier too that everybody thinks they're special, and we are special, right? Everybody's special, but it's sort of, it's almost like we have psychologically babied this generation, because if you think about it, there's a wait list everywhere for a therapist. Nobody can hack life. Nobody can do it. Everybody's anxious. Everybody's depressed. There's like an identity crisis going on. I think you've seen that. And I think that comes from part of, again, the emotional privilege of not having to go through these life phases.
Yeah, I remember what part of it was that stuck out to me, because I think I'm suffering from this to a certain extent. But you mentioned that ability to self-soothe and to just sort of like sit in discomfort, right? And like, yeah, I go to the gym and I put my body through pain and I endure that, right? But and I tell myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm making my mind hard. But then,
I lift things up.
I pick things down. Pick things up and put them down.
Yeah, right.
Booga booga.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then, but I know now. I'm fucking lying to myself, because as we discussed earlier, it's the coping skills.
It's
right?
a coping skill. Yeah.
That inability to self-soothe, and then referring to other bad habits. You know what I'm saying? No, I find that very profound. That's also why, like, our other generations are on the vapes, but nothing like our generation, like my generation. You know what I'm saying? Because I be seeing 30, 40-year-olds with the vapes, but bro, when I see the 15-year-old, 16-year-old, I'm like, yo, it's over for us.
You don't even feel bad, right?
I'm like, yeah, bro. It's like, yo, I'm only 8 years older than you, like,
And you're concerned.
and then I'm concerned, right? Because the thing is too, it's not like, my brothers and sisters are millennials, right? So there's somewhat of a gap, but them kids, it was like, yo, y'all are my generation. Like, you understand?
They're light years ahead. Like, what they know and what they're being exposed to, and just the emotional baggage that these kids are carrying is not the same that you were carrying. And so, because you're, like you said, you're a generation over, and then what you're carrying was not the same thing. I didn't have to deal. Just think about this. There's the mental health disorders that have been newly added to the DSM, which is what we use to diagnose in the past 10 years, just based on current trends in the psychological world. Such things such as social media addiction. That's diagnosable. Like, there's an actual code that you can build. That wasn't there 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So just think about the profound impact. And the video games, the vapes, the social media, the TikTok, and all of that, they're great tools, because, again, you no longer have to worry about, do I need to go to college and do what I'm doing, but I do it because I love doing it, right? There's other ways to make a living. But again, the ability to self-soothe, because you have to understand, when you have an entry-level job, all of these things, working at McDonald's, working at your local supermarket, dealing with work conflict, dealing with your boss, how to call out sick. All of these are things that might seem mundane, but what they're doing is they're teaching you life skills.
No, it's real.
Problem solve, conflict resolution, how to receive and get feedback.
Yeah.
These things in life, they teach you that. But I find that a lot of people now, not everyone, not every Gen Z, but everybody wants to fix things. Nobody wants to be anxious. Nobody wants to be scared. Nobody wants to be sad. As soon as they feel those feelings, they're like, all right, we need to get rid of it. Whether it's the vape, the gym, sex, drugs, TV, TikTok. But if you're constantly running from these uncomfortable feelings, you are never going to develop the distress you need to do life. Because you have to be sad. You have to sit with the sadness the same way you sit when you're having a good time with your boys.
Yeah.
You got to be able to tolerate both, because that's the reality of life. But this generation seems to believe that they're entitled to just be happy all the time, and that's unrealistic.
Yeah. No, I agree. Jeez Louise.
I hope that wasn't so bad.
No. That was very informative, right? Because the biggest thing that keeps running through my mind is the internet. Like, the amount of, because I write about this a lot. It's a subject I think about often. It's the fact that the internet made the world smaller. Because now everything is closer and more accessible.
Everything is accessible.
You don't have to fly to China to go see the Great Wall. You can Google a picture. You know what I'm saying? You don't even have to go to your local library anymore to go open up a textbook and picture of the Great Wall, right? I remember being in freaking kindergarten. There were only two ways I would see wild animals: Animal Planet and then the books at the library, right? And I used to go wild when Zaboomafoo came on. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you know about that Zaboomafoo.
The what?
There's a Boomafoo. It was like this show with a lemur, and the dudes would teach you about animals. You know what I'm saying?
Was it was it like they were in the wild or something like that, and they were like in a zoo setting?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I kind of vaguely remember. Yeah.
No, I mean that was my. But you know what I mean? Even like TV, it's so hard for me now, and I'm working on this, to sit down and enjoy television. Because the phone is there.
Because you want instant gratification.
I want instant gratification.
Because the access to everything fast, because you have not developed the skills to not be, every time you scroll, that's dopamine, you know, like the reward hormone, and you have your endorphins, which is the feel good hormones. So when all of that scrolling, all of that instant messaging, instant everything, it's holding you back from developing the ability to wait it out. To just wait it out.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? And I would think about something that I love and hate, ChatGPT. I have thoughts. I think it's a great tool, but the way that I learned how to write, I'll give you something relatable, like a resume, right? And sort of like, you know, do your little professional summary and all of that, or how to have a conversation with your manager, or how to do a job interview. The way you would traditionally learn out of these things is just really you brainstorming with yourself and sort of like perfecting your craft to write a cover letter, and sort of perfecting your craft of how to approach conflict resolution or how to give proper feedback. Well, guess what? Now all you need is ChatGPT. In about 1 minute, you put it in there, it throws it back at you, which is great. It's an amazing tool, but you never work the areas of your brain to do trial and error, to see how you've progressed, because you went from not knowing anything to boom, you have something that's near perfect.
Damn.
So you're missing access to dig deep within yourself, to develop that skill. So you're not working that muscle, the muscle of just being, of waiting,
and problem
of going through it, of just sitting with that uncomfortable feeling. We don't like that anymore.
Because my initial thought was like, who do we blame? All right. Initial thought was we blame the parents because they raised us.
Yep.
That's an easy cop out.
Yep.
Yes, they have some culpability.
Yep.
However, they cannot control the development of technology.
Nope.
You know what I mean? That's completely out of...
You can't put it back in the bag. That's it.
You know what I mean? You can't put the cat back in the bag, right?
Can't.
And so I think blame, and now I'm kind of speaking to the audience here, but blame in a conversation like this is useless. Because there's too many forces at play, I think, to just put it on one thing, right? I know older people want to blame social media, younger people want to blame their parents, right? The truth is, it's everyone's fault.
It's everyone. We all contributed.
We've all contributed. We've all been complicit in it, right? And so I think the only like productive thing to do now is to actually like develop education around this, right? We've had at least over 10 years now where we really didn't know or expect what the problems were going to be.
Yep.
Now we have a pretty good basis of knowledge, right? And so it's just to say, and I guess just what do you think about this? What would you do? You know, how do we educate people? What are the things people need? Young people, my generation, need maybe 1 through 5, right? 1 through 3. To deal with the disproportionate amount of instant gratification available. right? I don't know. These might be another quick tips and tricks. Nah, but you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that talking about, teaching and being realistic, I'm going to sit here and tell you, well, you should limit your use of technology. Like I can go textbook, but that's not real life, right?
Yeah.
And so what I will tell you, just think about this. When you are having the release of dopamine and like endorphins and all of those oxytocin, feel good hormones, reward hormones, right? The data shows, I was actually reading some studies some time ago. I'm just remembering what I read. They were doing brain scans, and the parts of the brain in the frontal lobe that lit up when people were doing cocaine,
oh,
you could Google this, is the same part of the brain that lights up when people were exposed to long periods of time. I think it was TikTok. You scroll, right? I'm old. I don't use TikTok. I do Instagram, but not TikTok. And this is not just your grandparent telling you put the phone away. This is an actual chemical response. This is an actual something happening in your brain. Like this is not just like, oh, the cell phones are. No, you are actually having a neurological response to this constant flow of dopamine. And what happens, have you ever gone somewhere and forgotten your phone? How do you feel when you don't have your phone?
For the most part, most cases, if I know where it is, I'm okay.
What if you don't know where it is for 7 hours?
Then I get nervous, right? Because for me, it's not necessarily like having it. It's more like, where the fuck is it? That's like $700 right there. But I will tell you, my watch.
Your watch?
When I don't have my watch, everything feels wrong. When I'm not wearing my watch, I feel butt ass naked. Like, I literally turned. I got out my car. I went down the street. I was like, oh shit.
You just turned back and you're like,
yeah. I was like, no. And that, like, a phone, I kind of need that. If somebody calls, it's important, whatever. My watch, this is not important, but it's a safety. It's a safety, right?
It's a safety.
I feel anxious.
It's how you via the watch. Like it's a watch, but basically the watch is a conduit for your perceived notion of having control, which you don't. I'm just saying. But it is. That's what it is. And talking about self-soothing, this is how you. Okay, I'm good. I have it because you get that. Like a little bit of like the dope because you feel like, okay, I got it. Like I have access to it. I'm safe. I'm okay. Life is good again. So going back to like your tips and tricks, I would say one, like, let's be realistic. We're not going to get rid of technology. I think I would go, if we're talking about addiction, harm reduction. You used to have hard liquor, have a beer. Maybe start testing yourself. You said about TV. Maybe try finding a series that you like on Netflix.
That's exactly what I've been doing.
And put your phone away for one episode.
Yeah.
Test the waters because we have to be realistic. Like we can't put the genie back in the bottle, right?
If Snowfall is on, put the phone down. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I've been watching that show. Exquisite.
So there you go. Find something that piques your interest and challenge yourself. Sort of see, first of all, we all laugh about it, but identify it. How do you react? How do you feel? And this is a rhetorical question to most people. So test it out. I would say, first of all, check in with yourself. See how attached you are to this device or TikTok or whatever. Insert, addiction to technology or instant gratification here. And then try to remove yourself a little bit from that and see how you react. And then step 2 would be find ways where you, say if you go for a walk or if you want to go hiking. I know we like to have the headphones on, but try leaving the phone on your car.
Yeah.
And see how that's gonna. Remember iPods? Mm-hmm. The little one.
I used to have a little clip-on joint.
You remember the oh my God, yeah. So sorry, I'm old, but I went back to that. So I would say 1, check in with yourself, see how attached you are to these things that are giving you the instant gratification. I think step 2 would be sort of doing a little bit of harm reduction because again, we're not gonna get rid of our iPhones to get a flip phone. That's just not realistic because there's a lot of convenience, right, in these devices. And then step 3, I would maybe think about what would you do if you weren't scrolling? Like, you know how phones have something that you can check the time you spent?
Yeah.
You can go by app and you can check.
Yep. You spend 10 hours a day on the phone.
And then out of those 10 hours, imagine if you go on your phone and you're like, oh, so a week you were spending about 37 hours on TikTok. That's over 24 hours in a week that you've spent on TikTok.
It sounds
It sounds messed up, but there's people that are doing even more than that. And I have No, I'm good. I love Pinterest is my thing because I'm a millennial. I love Pinterest, right? I like YouTube. I don't have the other social media, as you know, that I don't like. But yeah, Pinterest is my thing. Sometimes I'm there looking at things that I shouldn't be looking at 1 a.m, and then I wonder when I'm tired the next day. But I'm like, I have to look at this. I have to look at this. So again, I think it's just being realistic. Being aware of where you fall and finding ways to reduce it in a way that's sustainable, in a way that you can manage, and maybe then utilize that time to develop your skills while doing something that doesn't give you instant gratification, like watching 1 or 2 episodes at the time.
Yeah, no, that's it's good to know. I've actually been putting in work on some of these things.
Good.
And maybe it's things I picked up through therapy, but like trying to make life better, bro, because everything's just better when you're present.
Yes.
And took a walk through the park the other day, took my headphones off. I was like, man, nature's pretty.
Do you know some people tell me they can't work out without their headphones?
I kind of get it.
But why?
I think part of it.
Think about it.
I actually think part of that actually has to do with gym culture to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Where there's a certain solitude I think some of us seek at the gym. You know what I'm saying? And you don't got the headphones on, you can't establish that solitude.
Why can't you though?
That I don't know. I don't have an answer.
But why do you, so like if you go to the gym, and like maybe this can be my last question, but if you go to the gym and you don't have your headphones, what is it that's missing from your workout? You get on the treadmill or whatever, and what is missing at that moment? What does the AirPod give you? Or the music?
The watch.
The watch.
It's the safety.
Okay.
I thought that was your answer.
No, I'm asking you. Like, it's a real question.
Damn, this is not.
No, this is real.
This
like,
isn't game time. This is
yeah. So
time.
what is it if you don't have your watch, if you don't have your phone, if you don't have the headphones? What are you missing in your workout? Why does it feel so uncomfortable? And if you think about it, you are telling me that you can't in a comfort manner, engage in physical activity unless you have these extras attached.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop listening with headphones at the gym.
I'm gonna say I do it too. Never catch me at the gym when I do go without my headphones. But I'm just saying, think about it.
Yeah.
Why do? Isn't it crazy? It's not, it doesn't matter if you're wearing headphones or not. Like, I get it, like, to get in the zone, to feel safe, to feel that. So what we're saying is that whatever we need, we cannot come up with it by ourselves. We need it then. We need it now. We need that one song that's going to get us through.
No, absolutely. Because
we can't do it.
I've had some sets where I need to play.
You need a pump. You need to, because you can access that from yourself.
Yeah, bro.
And you want it yesterday, so you put on that song.
In all fairness, man, conjuring up the energy, the System of a Down. You ever listen to System of a Down? Mm-mm. It's like heavy metal, like rock, like.
Jesus.
But it sounds. But the crazy thing is, it sounds religious. Mm-hmm. Because the man who sings, that man belongs in like a gospel choir. Like it's.
You gotta send it to me so I can send it.
It's crazy.
I don't judge. I'm a therapist. Come on, man. Like, do you know the shit I see every day?
When it calms on, bro, I'm just like.
You're like the Hulk.
I start asking God questions, bro. I'm like, why? Pull up, you know.
Yeah. But you needed that to conjure that, right? Yeah. And so when people were like working out, because working out has been around forever, right? Basically,
we have always
trainings, but they didn't have that back in the day.
No,
they had to come up with it on their own.
Mm-hmm. All they would hear is the the dude next to them squatting and shit, and running.
But yeah, so that's my take on like this generation, and I just think that people need to stop and really pay attention to, like you said, the present moment, and realize that we have all of this access to make things easier in technology, and we have the answers to everything at the tip of our fingers, but also be mindful. And I would leave you with, ask yourself, what skills are you not developing? What long-term gain are you sacrificing for instant gratification? I would say. I don't even know how we got here, but got here.
It started with how's being a therapist going, basically.
Yes.
That's how it started, basically. No, this is excellent. Damn, Darleni, it's crazy how you left me with a lot to think about.
I feel like you said that every time we meet. You gotta go visit me with a coffee.
Yeah. No. On God, would you just be down to come through, do the show a couple of times?
Of course.
Well, maybe like we do a once a month episode. You know what I mean?
I'm down. I think this is good for me too. Like you giving me the opportunity. You've done things, and the way you're just like you said, like you're a go-getter. You're like, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it on my own. Overconfidence. I think I admire that because that has allowed me to sort of like push myself and say, you know what, do get, in front of the camera and do feel confident. So you're helping me as well. I hope you know that.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You're helping me, man, because you know what's wild? I was literally telling myself last week, I'm like, damn, maybe I should go get a master's in psychology.
You're gonna have so much questions knowing you, because I can tell you live in your head a lot.
Yes, I do.
I can tell.
That's my favorite place to be. That's why I don't go outside. This dude will help me up. He's like, yo, Daniel, let's go drink a beer.
Sorry, I'm thinking. I got my thinking hat on.
Like, nah. Yeah. It's yeah. He was like, yo, bro, you wanna go to this baby shower with me? And I was like, nah, bro, I had plans of staying inside.
I'm unavailable for socializing right now.
What you call it? No, but because I don't know. Well, I guess we can end on this subject, right? And this is funny. There's two ways I'm thinking of going. If this podcast absolutely fails, or if it succeeds and it can fund this. If you're trying to pay for Daniel to go back to school, like and subscribe.
Help the youth.
Yes, I'm the youth. But it's to say whatchamacallit. I either want to go back to school for law, specifically business law, or for mental health and psychology. Because the two things that I have identified as needs in our community are mental health and legal support. I got so many homies now with small businesses. They don't got lawyers. They don't got none of that, right? And I'm even helping my man figure out some intellectual property shit right now. I don't know how the fuck I ended up there, right? But then it's there's also this mental health need.
Oh, of course, it's huge in the community, I think.
You know what I'm saying? And sort of like, and maybe you have a biased opinion on this, but like, I guess not even that. You know, what is your take? What do you think our community needs, or like, what do you think? Not the one trick pony solution, but like, that's the question,
I thought that's funny that you asked that, but I think that, like you said, not that one trick pony. I don't care if it's mental health, finance, legal. I think what our community not need, but deserves is whatever services, whatever we're doing to be done with high standards. The same standard as you would find in another town that's socially economic better. So I don't care if it is a therapist, or if it is where you do your taxes, or if it is a lawyer. I would like to see whatever it is, but it be done respectfully, with integrity, and with high standards. Because I don't know where we got the notion that it is what it is. We've almost grown to expect low quality of service in everything. When you go to the doctor, when you go to the bank, when you go to do your taxes, the way that these places sometimes run, it's unacceptable. But we believe, or we've been brainwashed to believe that, oh, well, this is this community, therefore this is just the way things are done. No, it's not. So high standards in anything you do.
No, actually, damn, I agree with that one. The image of crabs in a bucket came to mind, because I feel like whenever you do something to a high standard in any lower income community, they always call you corny. They always laugh at you. They always try to pull you back down.
Yeah, because of that internalized belief that you doing it to the high standard, you're the odd one. See how internalized we have been. See how much we have internalized, and see how much we have been led to believe that the normal, the statistic is to expect,
average,
like bad, half-ass everything.
It's
more, people are more willing to accept in this community a half-ass effort than high standards. That's concerning.
That is concerning. Jeez Louise. All right. I know it's almost 6:30. I know you got to be somewhere at 7. I I'm gonna make a note here because we might pick up this conversation again.
Yes.
Of standards and conditioning. That might be our subject for next
I
time.
like that.
Do you have any final words for the people watching at home today? It could just be a simple farewell. It could be some words of motivation.
Well, thank you for having me. I think that you have a lot to add to this community. I think you're such a creative mind, which I think is why sometimes you go in so many directions. But I think if you can hone it in, I think this is a beautiful project. And yeah, if you know someone that should sit here and have a conversation with Daniel, send them over. So, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming.
Thank